I'm a parent of 2 children with rare disease SCL6A1 and founder of Arthur's Quest and SCL6A1 Connect UK, registered as a dual-name charity, and I'm also a paediatric practice development nurse by background. Arthur's Quest and SCL6A1 Connect UK were registered in 2019, and it's a patient organisation dedicated to improving the lives of children and adults affected by SCL6A1 by collaborating with our global network of parent-led organisations and funding research that will result in therapeutics to address our unmet needs. I'm really honoured to be here today to talk to everyone about our disease journey and the exciting drug developments for SCL6A1, namely phenylbutyrate, its meaningful outcomes and getting access in the EU and UK. So on a personal note, the advocacy group was created following the worst day of my life, the day my firstborn son was diagnosed with SCL6A1. We couldn't have been happier when Arthur was born, but very early on I noticed that something was wrong. I was convinced from 1 month of age that he was having seizures, but it took 18 months to convince health professionals and to have an EEG. And that was despite my background of working in a tertiary centre on a neuro and orthopaedic unit. Arthur was diagnosed with epilepsy following an EEG, and some 6 months later following a gene panel with SCL6A1, a disease so rare it had no name and sounded more like a flight number. So imagine you meet the doctors and they tell you, I'm really sorry, your child's results are back and they have got a rare disease called SCL6A1. There's no cure, there's hardly any evidence, and there's only 34 children known in the world. We can't tell you much about it or what the future might look like, but join a private Facebook group and make some connections. And that was it. Our world stopped spinning. The SCL6A1 gene encodes GABA transporter 1. It's a major GABA transporter whose primary function is the reuptake of GABA from the extracellular space in the synapse. The most common features are absent seizures, myoclonic atonic epilepsy, and intellectual disability. SCL6A1 related neurodevelopmental disorder is characterised by hypertonia, movement disorders, and neurobehaviour manifestations, including ADHD and autism. Challenging behaviour is one of the most impactful phenotypes on the family's quality of life with this condition, and Arthur's presentation ticked all of those boxes. Unfortunately, SCL6A1 wasn't done with our family. As parents, we tested negative in our genetic screens for SCL6A1, and we had Eden in 2019. She showed no signs of seizures, and she was developing really well. In the months leading up to her first birthday, she started blinking. Eden was diagnosed with epilepsy following a 24-hour EEG, which showed over 100 seizures correlating with my button presses, and she was later diagnosed with SCL6A1. Eden's epilepsy was harder to treat. She presented again with typical myoclonic atonic epilepsy, so common in SCL6A1. She was dropping every 5 minutes. She screamed and cried day and night, and she had facial bruises, split lips, and she even smashed out her first tooth. Eventually, a combination of 3 AEDs and a lot of titration has achieved around 85% control for both children. And this all happened in 2020, when the world was closed for business. By that time, SCL6A1 Connect in the US was fully operational under the steam of Amber Freed, another mother whose one twin, Maxwell, has SCL6A1. She has moved scientific mountains at lightning speed in the rare community, and as our timeline for gene therapy slipped away during the pandemic, they turned to drug repurposing, and scientists started with their best guesses, and they may have been right. The Kang lab at Vanderbilt Brain Institute studied 4-phenylbutyrate, or PBA, rescue of SCL6A1 mutation-mediated disorders in patient-derived cell and mouse models, and proposed that PBA could promote the translocation of GAT1 and rescue the SCL6A1 phenotype by increasing expression and trafficking of GAT1 in vitro and in vivo. PBA was proposed as a suitable molecule to cross the blood-brain barrier and was a good molecule to use in a clinical trial. It was already FDA approved, as well as NHS and across Europe, and used safely in patients globally who suffer from urea cycle disorder, including children. glycerol phenylbutyrate was used in our clinical trial. The team went from discovery to beginning a patient organisation-funded trial in a mere 6 months, highlighting the importance of patient engagement. The open-label trial was conducted in collaboration with Weill Cornell Medicine and the Children's Hospital Colorado. The fully analysed results are pending publication, and the trial included 2 conditions, SCL6A1 and STX-BP1. The trial was designed and included 10 SCL6A1 children. 6 of them had seizures, 4 of them didn't, and all of the STX-BP1 children had seizures, and that was indicative of their conditions. During the trial, Zach Greenspan, who was the lead PI, had to call Horizon, who had provided the drug to the trial, due to the astounding effect on the seizures, and they gave permission to extend the use for those patients. 14 of the patients in the study remain on the drug. All of the SCL6A1 children remain on the drug. The exploratory outcomes did go beyond seizure burden, and this was really important to the families. So they looked at EEG abnormalities, the quality of life, development, communication, behaviour, sleep, abnormal movements captured on videos, and the caregiver qualitative experience. The early results, seizure outcomes showed that all SCL6A1 children had significant seizure reductions, most at more than 90%. One 5-year-old boy was 100% seizure-free for the first time in his life. That 5-year-old boy was Will. His mother explained a painful journey to get to this point. Failed medications, one after the other, a story really familiar to all of us. William was having around 30 seizures an hour. These can be seen on the EEG and also on the white spikes in the compressed spectral array. They were desperate, and then they were offered a place in the trial. Approximately 1 week into full dose, a drastic reduction in seizures was unfortunately accompanied by extreme fatigue and an almost total loss of appetite. Ravicti dose was reduced, and while the symptoms decreased, the seizures came back. They attempted a much slower titration back to full dose, and the side effects almost completely ceased, and the seizures were once again reduced. At William's follow-up EEG 6 months later, he was completely seizure-free. There was not a single spike on his array. He has just celebrated at Christmas his 2-year seizure-free day. Will was the best responder for Ravicti in the trial, and it did go beyond the seizure burden. His behaviours improved, he was able to regulate his emotions, his mum was able to return to work, his cognition and focus improved. Overall, the quality of life for the whole family improved, and his parents are now able to spend time together away from Will, which they couldn't do before. Will's story is not unique anymore, but it is a beacon of hope. Since the trial, the number of patients taking glycerol phenylbutyrate has increased, and families in the US are fighting insurance companies for access. Families in Europe are fighting for compassionate prescriptions in desperation for a drug that works for their children, and often having to pay out of pocket themselves with a huge financial burden. Ravicti costs $800,000 per patient per year in the US. There are patients in the US, Europe, Israel, China, Australia, Ukraine, all taking Ravicti with good results, and many of them are self-funding, and they are running out of money fast. The drug's licensed only for urea cycle disorder, and the trial was small and remains unpublished at present. I've liaised with NHS England, and they are investigating its use in the UK, but they are waiting for the draft publication. The original trial is intended and has now been expanded to incorporate other DEs, including SYNGAP, with patients dosed last month. There are siloed trials happening across Europe. Ravicti received orphan drug status for use in STX-BP1 late last year, and when we approached Medica about their press release, we were advised that they couldn't apply it for SCL6A1 at that time. There's also now a Facebook forum for all the DEEs interested in PBA, already using it or hoping to use it in the future, and they're sharing information between families and communities. So why is it so important to our families to try? Because our quality of life is poor. We obviously do have good times, but they are far outweighed by the challenges at the moment. We have to calculate every activity that we do. We can't go out without help as a single person, because our children's behaviour is so unpredictable and it's physical. We can't just parent our children. It's a job to know everything about SCL6A1, as well as all of its symptoms and how best to support its development. Attend appointment after appointment, as well as working, holding down jobs. As parents, we are exhausted to our bones. And families are cracking under the pressure. Many have actually separated. You can see the really powerful comments here from families that we're hearing on the Facebook forums, at events and face-to-face. The evidence isn't quantified in a study yet, and this is family feedback, and it's phenomenal to hear. How couldn't we be excited to try PBA? We already know it's safely used in children around the world. I met our Spanish organisation leaders yesterday, and they're here today with us. In Spain, there are 4 children already taking Ravicti. All have had mild symptoms far outweighed by the almost instantaneous improvements in their children's maturation, cognition, focus, attention, language, communication, and overall well-being. It is astounding. In Belgium, our most poignant feedback I have ever heard is from a teenage boy who actually takes Amanaps, and they're self-funding, and it's the B product of the phenylbutyrate. He was suicidal, literally suicidal, asking his mum how he could die every day. She didn't know what else she could do for this child. It was horrendous. And he was actually patient X. His family heard about the findings in the lab. So before the trial even started, his doctor said, okay, let's try. So he actually started taking phenylbutyrate before the trial. And it worked. His well-being has improved. He's happy. His communication has improved. His focus has improved. He now has conversations with his mum about girls and school. They ran out of money. And his mum was terrified. We, as an organisation, sent a small amount of money for 6 weeks dose, which was €800. And then she managed to do a bit more fundraising to continue buying it. In that short period of time, which was 4 months, I think, of stopping, he deteriorated immediately, and they were really scared. So they cannot stop taking the drug once they start. So next steps, we need the full analysed data from Zach Greenspan. He is sharing the data, he is talking about it, he presents at conferences, he's been at our symposium, there are videos, he just hasn't published the paper, but he does talk about the evidence, and he's already moved on to his own phase 2 of the trial. As mentioned many times yesterday, it's important in rare disease to align, where possible, with other diseases with similar mechanisms, and that's always been our intention with research for SCL6A1 being applied to other developmental and epileptic encephalopathies following the proof of concept, and that's already happening with the Ravicti trial. The EEG changes need to be quantified, and there are biomarker studies happening. New sources of phenylbutyrate need to be created, and we've already had a new formula created, and we're looking for partners to bring that to patients. We have a patient organisation-owned natural history studies, patient registries, biorepositories. We have several banks of mouse models, cell lines, iPSCs. They can all be utilised for SCL6A1 research. We have 2 zebrafish projects, one in Italy, one in the US, testing drug libraries of existing drugs. Globally, SCL6A1 organisation is research ready. Finally, again, imagine you're in the room with the doctors and they tell you, I'm sorry to tell you your child's results are back. They have a rare disease, it's called SCL6A1. But there is good news. We already know so much about the condition. There's a large community of patients, patient organisations, and there has been a lot of drug development in recent years. Your family has options and the future looks bright. And this is just to outline that we do have a yearly symposium in America, and it is aligned with the AES conference, usually 1 or 2 days before. The recordings of 2022 are available online, and anyone interested in SCL6A1, the next one's taking place in LA on the 5th and 6th of December. Thank you.